Hello, so we are going to create some artwork using nature, and we're going to use these leaf patterns to trace around. There's lots of different leaf patterns to choose from, and sometimes the stems get torn off of them. But if you wanted to use this, all you would do is lay it down like that and carefully trace around it. So the first thing that you're going to do is write your name and the day you have art, day A, day B, day C. You're going to flip it over, and you're going to start tracing these leaves on your paper. So I'm going to use this one that's broken just to show you how to do it. So I'm laying it down. I'm going to hold this stem and carefully trace around the stem. Remember that when you're tracing around something, you want to keep your pencil straight up and down. If you keep your pencil at an angle like this, it slips underneath the pattern. So you want to keep it up and down. And you're tracing very carefully and neatly with a pencil. You have these patterns to trace around. So I'm finished tracing this. I'm going to move that out of my way and then finish the sleeve here. So when you trace these, they should look like the pattern itself. It shouldn't look like something different. And you're going to trace some going off your paper. And you're going to trace some of them overlapping or touching each other. And since this stem has been torn off, I'm going to finish drawing a long stem on this just so that it looks nice and neat. So when you draw some leaves overlapping and touching each other, you're going to draw the whole leaf. So you won't not draw part of it because it's overlapping another leaf. You just trace the whole thing as if it's made of glass and you can see right through the leaf itself. Take your time. Some of these leaves are very tricky to trace around, so do not rush. I want to see nice, neat leaves traced. I want to see that you've taken your time. The shape should look like the shape of this leaf here. The leaf that you trace around. It's more interesting if things run off the side of the paper, so don't trace all the leaves fitting neatly inside the edge of your paper. Have some run off the edge, the side of the paper. And we're tracing with pencil, so if we make a mistake, we can erase. I'm trying to use different leaves each time. If you like a certain shape or look of a leaf and you want to use it more than once, you can. Alright, I think this is enough. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 leaves. So I would say you need to trace 5 to 8 leaves on your paper, some overlapping and some running off the sides. So I don't have anything running off the side here, but that's okay. I have some stuff running off the other sides. Now you're going to take some crayons and you're going to press hard with the crayon, and you're going to trace each leaf. You're going to trace each leaf in a different color. And I want you to press hard to make a nice wall of crayon, a wall of wax. So if you use lighter colors, you might be able to see the pencil line through the crayon, and that's okay. But trace neatly. You traced with pencil neatly, so now you need to trace with crayon neatly. Pressing hard to make a nice wall of wax on your paper. Each leaf should be a different color. If you accidentally lose track of the leaf line and you change your color and you do a leaf in 2 colors, that's okay. Alright, so now we're going to paint our entire paper with watercolor. So what we are creating is a crayon watercolor resist. So you're going to get a water basin, a paint tray, a placemat to go under your work, and I'm choosing 2 different size paintbrushes, a large paintbrush and a medium paintbrush. The first thing that you want to do is pick a tray that has a lot of paint or some paint in it. So I don't have any of this color here, it's completely empty, but I do have yellow. It looks a little empty, but there's some yellow along the edge. I have some green down at the bottom, a little bit of green and a little bit of the blue-green. So I do have plenty of paint, it's just empty right here. So what I'm going to do first is take the large paintbrush and put a puddle of water on the colors that I want to use. So I take my paintbrush, dip it in the water, and then I pull it across the edge. Now my yellow's messy, so I'm going to wiggle, rinse, wiggle, rinse, wiggle, and rinse. And that's kind of cleaned up that yellow. So I'm going to put a puddle of water on the yellow. And I just take my paintbrush and I pull it across the edge of the oval where the paint is, and the water in my paintbrush drips out and onto the color. The reason I got 2 paintbrushes is I have some small shapes that I need a smaller paintbrush for to paint in neatly. You're going to start with the leaves, You're going to pick a color to paint inside your leaf. It does not have to be the same color as the crayon. And this is why I wanted you to press hard with the crayon to make a nice wall of wax, so that when you paint it in, this watercolor stays inside the shape, because you have this nice wall of wax that's resisting the watercolor and pushing it back into its space. And you're going to paint each shape in a different color. So where the leaves overlap is a new shape. So that will be that space there where the two leaves overlap, that'll be a different color. So I'm using this yellow-green color to color in this maple leaf, but where it overlaps with the next leaf, I'm going to change my paint color. If you make a mistake when you're painting and you paint the whole leaf one color when it overlaps, that's okay. But let's see if you can do this. So I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off and pick a different color. I just tap, tap, tap the bottom of the water where the paint is, get a little paint on my paintbrush, and fill in this next shape with a different color of paint. It's the same leaf. This is a maple leaf, but it overlaps into this other leaf. So I changed the color. Now if you've made a nice thick wall of wax with your crayons, these two colors will not run and bleed together as long as you stay on that side of the wall. You're going to color in each shape. Now this paint here is way too thick. That's too dark. It should be real watery like I see here, and that's a really heavy, thick paint. So I'm going to rinse my paintbrush out and just use water, plain water out of the bowl, and move that water, that paint and that color around with just plain water so that lightens up. If I paint on really thick watercolor paint, it stays sticky. It doesn't dry, and it stays sticky, and then someone's paper who sits on top of my paper will get stuck like glue. And then when you pull it off, you have little bits of paper on top of your painting. Now this is tricky. This leaf overlaps two leaves, so I had to look and see where I paint, because all these different shapes here, it fools the eye a little bit. I didn't want to make a mistake. But if I made a mistake, that's okay. We're not perfect. You just do the best you can. But I just stay within this wall of crayon, and I don't paint over the top of the crayon. Stay within the crayon space, and then that will help me to know where I paint and where I don't paint. This paint is too dark. Rinse my paintbrush off and just use plain water. Okay, and this would be a good spot for me to use my skinny paintbrush, my smaller paintbrush, because it's such a small area. And I overlapped the orange, and I went over the top of the crayon, and so it bled with the orange. So you can just let it bleed like that, or if that bothers you, you can get a paper towel and blot at it. And when you blot, you just press down and pull up, and that's all that you do. Okay, so once you get all of your leaves painted in, I want you to pick one color for the background, a color that hopefully you didn't use in your leaves. So I didn't use this nice dark blue color anywhere in my leaves, so I chose that for the background. And I painted in all the remaining white space with that one color. I didn't change the color and do half blue and half yellow. I stuck with the same color for the whole entire background. And the whole paper should be painted. There shouldn't be any white poking through. I mean, I do have little smidges of white here and there by the crayon, but you should paint in your whole paper as much as possible. And then you're going to put this on the drying rack with your placemat underneath it, your manila paper. And you'll put your paint tray away, and we'll collect paint brushes and